The S-199 history started in Czechoslovakia, whose factories had many unfinished Bf-109 planes left after the German occupation, mostly the G5 and G6 series. They were used to create some fighters for the nation's own air force, and since the original DB605 engines were destroyed in a fire, they had to make do with the UMO-211. Frankly speaking, the decision was far from perfect, but nothing else could be done. A poor flight performance was better than none. Moreover, the UMO-211 engine was made for bombers, and as such, there was no way to install an engine cannon. Even the synchronized cowl-mounted machine guns were unreliable, sometimes shooting off the propellers. As for cannons, the only ones they could have were in wing-mounted gun pods, which made the aerodynamics even worse and moved the center of mass forward. There was no way to squeeze them inside the wing, since it barely had any place for smaller calibers. Yeah, the S-199's speed was almost 100 kph lower than the original Bf-109, and maneuverability suffered too. Yeah, it made the plane even harder to control on takeoff and landing than the original late 109s. But it was their own plane, their own and not imported from abroad, be it the West or the East. And it was an interim solution anyway, since the jet era was already knocking on the door. The Czechoslovakian engineers must have known that such a plane wouldn't last long in service. But what's next? Scrap them? Well, they're almost new. Sell them? Well, after the war, you would get wonderful, almost brand new Mustangs from the United States for a price comparable to a military truck. Just get it off their hands. And the Soviet Union was practically giving away its excellent Yak-9 and La-7 aircraft to its allies as part of their help-for-friendly regime. So, who would ever need the obviously inauspicious S-199 in that world? Strange as it may seem, they did find a buyer. The new and aspiring nation of Israel, trying to survive in the challenging environment with the weapons embargo imposed on it. At the time, the Israeli army was trying to get any weapons they could, in any possible way, for any money. So Czechoslovakia couldn't miss the opportunity. It was a true Mission Impossible type of operation, one of the first brilliantly performed by the Secret Service of the young Israeli nation. 25 S-199 aircraft flew to Israel at night, only making stopovers for fuel and maintenance in places that asked no questions. We're still unsure what had Czechoslovakia hoped for when they sold the S-199, that no one would notice the fact, and the tiny group of 25 planes would just dissolve after a devastating attack of the Arab countries before someone realized some odd Messerschmitts were soaring above Sinai. Boy, were they wrong. In the hands of the Israeli pilots, the S-199 made a splash, and a grandiose scandal ensued. Many Czechoslovakian politicians and officers lost their careers, and even freedom. The odd Messerschmitts were fighting and winning a right to exist for Israel. But, shall I say it, that's a story for another time.